back to Maelstrom Gaming. My name is Malachi Gardner, and today I'm going to be teaching you how to set up and play Dragonfire by Castless Games. I hope you all enjoy the video.
The townsfolk are terrified. Monstrous inhabitants from the nearby dungeon continually raid the surface, burning fields, disrupting trade, and taking captives. The town needs adventurers willing to brave the depths. Welcome to the start of my playthrough of Dragonfire, which is a cooperative, campaign-based deck-building game for 2 to 6 players, which is playable solo if you control 2 characters. So that is actually what I'm going to be doing, and so today I'm going to be showing you how to set up a game of Dragonfire, and specifically a 2-player game, and then I will be showing you the basics of Dragonfire. I'm not going to be going too in-depth into all of the rules, but with this video and my upcoming playthrough, you should have a good idea of how to play the game. So the first step to setting up your Dragonfire game is to first pick your characters. So I've already picked out the characters I want to play for this playthrough. So you're going to have so this is a martial class fighter, and then you have a race, which this is a half-orc, and they have a bunch of stats and abilities that I'll get into in a little bit. And then the other character is going to be an arcane class, wizard. Race is going to be a human. And again, I will tell you what everything there does. So you're going to just set your characters down, and you are going to build their decks. So each character has a equipment pack listed here, and this is like their starting deck. As it is a deck building game, you are going to start with a deck of cards, and then as you play, you're going to be able to purchase more cards. But this is each character's starting deck. So you see here, this guy has 5 black glory cards, which is the basic black card, and then it has 1 blue arcane, 1 green grace card, and then 1 red stealth card. The wizard, on the other hand, has 4 arcane cantrips, 1 martial glory card, 1 divine grace card, and then 1 deception stealth card. So you can just get all those cards from the box, and that will be how you create the character's initial starting decks. And voila. So I have retrieved the cards that belong in their decks. So this half-orc here, he has 1 stealth card, which is red, 1 green grace card, 1 cantrip, and then he's going to have 5 glory cards. And then, because it is a 2-player game, we are going to make a slight modification to their deck. The game is balanced for 4 characters of each color. So there's the black martial color, which is... Then you have the blue arcane color, the red deception color, and then the green devotion. And these kind of correspond to the 4 basic classes that you'd find in most fantasy-type games. So you have, like, the fighter here, which this also contains the rangers and barbarians that you can find in expansions. The base set for this one is just a wizard, but then for expansions you also have the warlock and the sorcerer. This one you have the rogues in the base set, and then in expansions you can also get the bard class. This one has the clerics in the base set, and then with expansions you can get the druid. And so those are the 4 basic roles. So you have martial, arcane, deception, and devotion. Each class corresponds to one of those, which you can find that listed here, where it says it's a martial class. So, since this is a martial class, it's going to take this token right here, and this is going to represent it as it moves around. The wizard is an arcane class, so he's going to take this blue token here to represent him. Now, since these 2 colors are not represented in the characters I have, we must assign these roles to these 2 characters. So, because we do not have a rogue or a bard, we're going to have to give this to the fighter, and then this is going to go to the wizard. To make up for us just not being as proficient in these 2 colors, and you'll see what that means in a little bit, we're going to be able to take these 2 bless cards and add 1 to each of our characters' decks. But we must also remove one of their other cards. So I'll remove a glory here, and then a cantrip here. So these will just be removed from the game, and they're not needed. Now, we have our characters' decks, which now have a Bless card in there, which is a more powerful card you can get. And so now we're going to be able to shuffle these up, and then we'll be all set for our decks. Now, there's one last thing we get to do when we create our characters, and that is to choose a background. Now, these are completely optional, but you can take one of them and put them on one of your character's 6 feature slots that are going to be able to be used for different features, which are like, these are stickers here, that you can put on your character to give them extra benefits. Now, for me, I'll get more into this later, but I'm not actually a huge fan of the stickers in this particular game. In other games, such as Gloomhaven, I enjoy the stickers, but there's just something about this game, which I may get into at a later time, that I just am not a huge fan of the stickers here. So, what I do is I have these cards, which are half of an index card, so I just took an index card, cut it in half, and now we have these two things, and then I will put the stickers that I want on these index cards, 1 sticker per card, and then that will allow me to have greater flexibility with how I use these stickers, because then I'll just have all these stickers on index cards, and they're all indexed and organized. That way, whenever I want to purchase a sticker for one of my characters as the game progresses, I will be able to take one of these index cards that has a sticker on it, and I'll just be able to take that instead of having to physically alter the characters. So I'm just going to go ahead, look through these stickers real quick, and choose which ones I want, and I'll put them on there. So for our wizard, I chose the Acolyte, and then the Guild Artisan for the fighter. So I will just set these aside, and then I'll explain them when the time comes. But normally, as you play, you're going to gain experience points, which then you can use to spend those on more powerful features. These ones are free. You just get one of them at the beginning of the game, and the other ones will require you to spend more time to earn them, and then they're more powerful as well. But they're just nice little ways to customize your character in little ways. Now that our characters are all set up, we can go ahead and start setting up the actual game. So first, we choose our adventure, which are like the scenarios, and there are 7 in the core box, I believe. So we're just going to choose the dungeon crawl one right here. And at the beginning of the video, I actually read off the flavor text already, so you kind of know what's going on. Basically, there's monsters coming out of a dungeon, and we need to go in there and fight them. So each of these scenarios will provide you with some special rules for that scenario, and then we'll tell you how to set it up and things like that. This dungeon crawl scenario right here is the most basic out of all of these scenarios, and it is kind of the vanilla Dragonfire experience. It is kind of the thing you're going to be coming back to, and it's what all the other scenarios are based on. They're all just deviations of this one scenario right here, and there's some that are very different, but this is the core of the game. So, we have some adventure setup rules here. It says use Dungeon 1 as the primary encounter deck, and Dungeon 2 as a secondary encounter deck. So, in the game, there are a bunch of different decks of cards that contain monsters and traps and locations, and each scenario or adventure will tell you which one of those you need to use in each game. So, for the dungeon crawl scenario, it tells us to use these 2 decks here. So we have the Dungeon 1 deck and then the Dungeon 2 deck. So we're just going to go ahead and shuffle these up, and then we will move on to the next part of setup. Alright, so now these decks are all shuffled up, and I'm just going to go ahead and set these aside, just out of the way for now, but in close to each area. So now, that is all of these scenario-specific setup instructions. So now we're just going to go through and do some more generic type setup instructions. So we have this deck here, which is the Market deck, and these are a bunch of really powerful abilities that you're going to be able to purchase throughout the game. These are cards that are going to be added into your deck so that you can use them. And I'll explain what these are in a little bit, but I'm just going to go shuffle these up for now, and then I will move on to the next thing. Alright, this deck's all shuffled up. Then we're going to set this right here And then we are going to deal out 6 cards face up. So that is what will be available from the market at the beginning of the game. So now we have our 6 cards out here, and again, I will explain what those do in just a little bit. So now, the final deck that we need to set up is this here, and this is the Dragonfire deck. This is kind of the event deck slash timer for this game. So I'm just going to go ahead and shuffle this up, and then we are almost there. Alright, this deck's all shuffled up, and then we're going to set this down, and we'll set it right here. Because we're playing a 2-player game, we're going to take these 2 tokens right here, and we are going to place those on top of the deck, and I will explain what that does in just a little bit. So then, now, there are 2 last things we need to do. First, we need to choose a first player and give them this token. So I'm just going to give this to the fighter. It is recommended that you give it to the character who has the most hit points. So our fighter has the most hit points, and I'll explain how we know that just a little bit. But then you're also going to take the adventure environment, and there are several of these included in the game, and they are double-sided as well. And you are just going to choose whichever one. It doesn't matter at all, and you are just going to place it just kind of in the middle of the table, and you're going to put everyone's marker on that there. So this is going to be our fighter, this is going to be our wizard, and we're going to put that on there. And this is kind of just the main room of the dungeon, almost. It is where we are going to be. Alright, so now, there's a couple last setup things we need to do for our character. First, we're going to set up their stat. First up, everyone has a hit point value, so the wizard has 6. So we're going to take one of these little dagger tracker clips and slide that on this board. On the 6th slot, now, these are laminated, and they are very nice, so they slide well, or you can pick them up and put them back down, and it doesn't actually beat up the boards at all. I know some people were worried about that. And then you're also going to take their starting gold. So the wizard starts with 4 gold. So we'll take a 3, and then we'll take a 1. And then the wizard also starts with 4 cards in his hand. So I will draw those as well. That is going to be our starting hand. And now all those to the fighter as well. The fighter has 10 hit points, 2 gold, and 4 cards as well. So we'll set this at 10. We'll give him 2 gold coins, and then 4 cards. And this is going to be his starting hand. Now, we are all set up and ready to play. The game is played in a series of scenes, which are further divided into rounds, which are further divided into turns. The way a scene works is that a bunch of monsters are going to be coming at us, being spawned from one of these decks here, and then we're going to have to fight those monsters. After we defeat those monsters, we're going to move on to the next scene. So, the rules for encounters are listed here, and I'm not going to read all of that, but what it says to do is we're going to take encounters equal to the number of characters, which in this case is 2, and we are going to place those out. So we'll draw our 2 characters here. The first one is placed in front of the character with the matching color. So this Chol here is going to be placed in front of the wizard. The rest are just placed in a clockwise fashion, one at a time. This is going to be placed in front of the half-orc fighter. And those are the monsters that we're going to be fighting. You are going to be able to fight monsters in front of you, and the monsters in front of you are going to be fighting you. You are able to actually attack monsters in front of other players, so this half-orc could fight this Chol over here, but the Chol cannot fight the half-orc. That is just going to be fighting the wizard. If you are in different locations, then those rules change, and you're going to have to move to the same place. But in general, if you're in the same location, then you are going to be able to fight people in front of the other players. So, at the start of each scene, you're going to reveal those monsters and follow any additional rules in the adventure here. There are none for this specific adventure. And then at the beginning of the first round, you're going to draw a Dragonfire card, which is one of these cards up here. Because there are these 2 tokens here, these are basically null Dragonfire cards. At this time, normally we just reveal the top one, follow what it says, put back on top of the deck, and if any persistent abilities are on that card, those will stay in effect until it is discarded at the end of the round. But then we're going to be able to go into our first turn. The turn is divided into a number of steps. The first step is a start of turn step, where the first thing you get to do is you can move if you would like. If there are multiple locations, you are able to move your piece from one location to another. You can move from the adventure environment to a location card, or from a location card to the adventure environment. You may not move from a location card to another location card. Then you activate any start of turn effects on monsters in front of you, the Dragonfire card, as well as on cards that you may have played on previous turns, or any feature stickers you have, or magic items. Then you're going into the play cards phase. During that phase, you're going to have your hand of cards, and you're going to be able to play cards from your hand to prepare attacks to fight against monsters. Each monster card is going to have a series of levels here. Those are the amounts of damage and the types that you must deal to defeat that monster. So it's 3 gray, which is colorless, and then 1 blue, then 2 colorless, and then 1 green. And you must do it in that order. Now, how do you deal damage? Well, after playing a card, later on your turn, you're going to be able to deal damage equal to the amount of damage icons on that card. There are 4 colors of damage. There are blue, black, green, and then there's also red damage, and that corresponds to the 4 different class types. In order to deal 1 level of damage to a monster, you must play cards that will deal that much damage. So for here, it's 3 colorless damage. Colorless damage cannot become anything, but anything can become colorless. So let's see, what do I want to do? I think that I will play all of these cards in my hand. So I'll just set those by the monsters I would like to deal damage to, as well as you being able to play cards from your hand. Other people can play certain cards, such as this Bless card here. Those cards must have an assist ability listed below a line here. So this has an assist ability that says deal 1 damage of any color. Essentially, if you play this on your turn, it does 1 green damage. If you play this on someone else's turn, it does 1 damage of any color. So it's wild. So he's going to play it, and he's going to set it right here in front of this monster. Now, after playing all the cards you want to play from either player, and activating any features you want, so I can, for this character, once per game, on my turn, I can exchange 2 colorless for green, and then the other character can do the same thing for red. I could do that now as well. Then, afterwards, you're going to go into the deal damage phase. During the deal damage phase, you are going to be able to use your cards to deal damage. So I'm going to deal these 3 damage as colorless damage to be able to take down the first level here. To show that you have cleared a level, you can use one of these markers here to cross that off. This card was placed as an assist, so it does 1 damage of any color. So it's going to deal 1 blue damage here, and now that level is cleared. I'm not going to do any more damage to this monster, so on future turns, I'll just have to deal these 2 levels here, and then I'll defeat this monster. Then, this cantrip I played is going to do 1 blue damage to this Chol. So again, I'm going to mark this off. Alright, so now after doing all the damage for our cards, we're going to discard our cards. So, these cards were all played by the fighter, so the fighter is going to discard them, placing them in his discard pile. And then this card was played by the wizard, so that will go into the wizard's discard pile, and everything's falling over. Now the enemies will attack back. Any enemy in front of you will deal damage equal to its strength value here. So now he's going to deal me 2 damage, which I'll mark down here. So now I went from 10 hit points to 8 hit points. Next is going to be the replenish phase. During the replenish phase, you're going to check the amount of cards you have in your hand. I have none. If you have fewer than 3 cards, which I do, you may draw 2 cards. If you have more than 3 cards, then you may not draw any cards. Now, after doing the replenish phase, you're going to go into the market phase. During the market phase, you may spend your hard-earned gold to purchase cards. Each card has a cost listed up there in the top right corner. When you buy a card, you'll pay all the gold that the card requires and put it in the common supply, and then you'll add that card directly to your hand, not into your discard pile like in other deck building games. There's no limit to the amount of cards that you may buy as long as you can afford each card. If you decide to not buy a card, you must take any card from the market and discard it and draw a replacement. every time you buy a card, you also replace that card. So there's always going to be 6 cards in here. After that, play will proceed clockwise. So first, I'm going to see if I want to buy anything, and I think I will buy this Perception here. This is going to do 1 red damage, and if I play it, I can make a skill check. Now, when you make a skill check, you are going to reveal a top card of your deck. If it matches your class color, so in this case, it's black and red, then you succeed. And in this case, you would gain 1 gold from the common supply. If it does not match your color, then nothing happens. Regardless, you will take that card and put it at the bottom of your deck, which is known as burying it. After the wizard goes, the round will end. At the end of the round, you will discard the top card of the Dragonfire deck, or in this case, it would just be a token, and then you'd reveal the next Dragonfire card. If the players manage to successfully defeat a monster, you will get gold equal to its payout value, which in this case is 7. Whoever's turn it is will take 1 gold. The next player clockwise will take 1 gold, and so on and so forth, until all the gold is distributed. Also, if there are any vanquished effects here, that will trigger then, in this case, it says deal 1 level of damage to another encounter. If all of the monsters are defeated, you will go to the next scene. In between scenes, though, there is a short rest. First, what you're going to do is you're going to take the top card of the Dragonfire deck and put it at the bottom of the deck, burying it, and then each player will heal 1 hit point, not exceeding their maximum hit points, and then each player has a chance, in turn order, to purchase a card from the market. After that, you will consult the chart on the dungeon crawl scenario for seeing how many more monsters come out. As you discard cards from the Dragonfire deck, that will increase what is known as the Dragonfire level. If there are 2 cards in the Dragonfire discard, the Dragonfire level is 2, and that will trigger certain abilities. For example, the troll right here has a little dragon symbol +4 next to it. If the Dragonfire is 4 or more, it gets +1 attack strength. And then if it's 7 or more, instead it gets +2 attack strength. So it gets more powerful the higher the Dragonfire level is. In addition to all of that, in the dungeon crawl, at the beginning of each scene, you're going to check the Dragonfire level. The first encounter cards you deal each scene must be dealt from the secondary encounter pile, which is the more difficult level 2 monsters, until you reach the Dragonfire level. If the Dragonfire level was 1, and you must spawn 3 monsters, the first monster will be from the level 2 deck, and then the other 2 will be from the primary deck, which is the level 1 deck. And again, the monsters and the entire game will just get stronger and stronger the longer you take in the game. This will continue until either the players have defeated all 3 scenes, or the monsters have defeated all the players. Now, how that happens is through damage. If a player ever gets to the unfortunate position where he is at 1 hit point, and then he must suffer more damage, he is stunned. When a player is stunned, a couple things will happen. First, you will take your entire hand, your entire discard pile, and your entire deck, and shuffle them all together. Then, you'll take an exhausted token. While you are stunned, you may not purchase any cards from the market, and while you are exhausted, you only draw 1 card at the end of your turn instead of the normal 2. If you are ever healed by any amount of hit points by a card that someone else plays, or some Dragonfire effect or anything, you will be no longer stunned, and you can continue to take turns like it's normal, but you still are exhausted, and you still only draw 1 card at the end of your turn. At a short rest, you will lose your exhausted token if you were stunned. If you ever suffer damage while you are stunned, you will be knocked unconscious. While you are unconscious, you may not do anything on any of your turns. You may not even draw cards or play cards. If there's ever a moment where all players are either stunned or exhausted or any combination, then the players have lost. At the end of the game, you will check the section on completing the adventure, and it will tell you what to do. So, first, it says, after the 3rd scene, the party has completed the adventure. Okay, that's how you win. And then it says, awarding XP and magic items. And it tells you that for each scene that you start, each player receives 1 experience point. If the party completes this entire adventure, the players each receive a bonus of 2 XP. for a total of 5 experience points. The standard rules apply for awarding magic items, so whether you win or lose, you will gain some experience points. If you win, you'll gain a lot more, but if you lose, you still gain some. And like I said earlier, experience points may be used to purchase these features here. And it also mentions magic items, which when you get magic items, you will draw from a magic item deck, which will give you some cool abilities, and that you'll be able to take into your next game. In addition, you have some optional scenarios down here. So you have 2 different modular things that you can add into the scenario to make it even harder. For example, charge. Reveal 1 additional encounter at the start of each scene, plus 1 XP upon adventure completion. So, high risk, high reward. You can add these extra things to make it harder on yourself, but at the same time, you will make it so that if you win, you get more rewards. And then you also have some special rules that apply to the dungeon crawl. Because it's kind of the vanilla Dragonfire experience and it's the base of everything, this scenario has a lot of flexibility, so you're actually able to take any level 1 deck and any level 2 deck. You can use those in any combination, so you could fight in the city instead of a dungeon, or in the forest, or on the coast, or in the middle of the deserts. And so there's a lot of different variety, even in just this one scenario. And that is the basics of Dragonfire. I hope you all enjoyed this video. I hope you found it helpful, and I hope you are as excited as I am to dive into a full-on playthrough of Dragonfire with these 2 characters that we just created here, the wizard and the half-orc. If you have any name ideas, you can feel free to post those in the comments, and maybe I'll name these characters, which will be a little bit more exciting than just having the half-orc fighter and the human wizard. Having some names would be kind of cool. And as always, I hope you guys have a great day. Happy gaming!